So it's my pleasure to share this small session called Studio, okay? And I'm very happy to ask some questions to my prestigious colleagues. First one, Prateek Sharma, and then Cesare Hassan. Cesare Hassan is a close friend such as you. And so the purpose is to speak about artificial intelligence, clinical research, scientific data, etc. So nevertheless, the question for me is the more important is to know if ESGE should write a guideline indicating that artificial intelligence is mandatory for the column. Mandatory, that's obligatory, you should use.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, this is a very good point, Thierry, because differently from any other innovation in endoscopy, AI is extremely fast. The translation of one drug, one device took 10 years. Of AI, it's just 1 year. You have it here. Here in Europe, Thierry, we have more than 20 devices and we have no guideline. This is somewhat shaming for us as scientific society. So absolutely, we need to have a guideline on AI. Although also with the American society, we have the same problem. It's not so easy to be behind AI. Should it be recommended? We have 25 studies now showing that it increases the adenoma detection rate. So if you look at the efficacy, yes, Thierry, but you also need to take into account the cost. What is the value of AI? Because now it is the second more expensive device in your unit out of the tower. So should ESGE recommend to spend so much on AI? So of course I suggest for patient perspective, but I need to consider the cost. If there is a no cost issue, I would say yes, it's recommended.
Okay.
And even if you take, Cesare, only the cost issue there, how about people who already have a very high adenoma detection rate? You can argue whether they really need it or not. Is it going to benefit the endoscopists who have a low adenoma detection rate? Because right now when we're talking about AI, we're just talking about polyp detection because that's the one which has been approved and is available. So I think there are a number of unanswered questions. I agree, cost is one of the major ones, but I think there are also other unanswered questions about AI. So your question, as always, very controversial and very important, but does not have a very simple, straightforward answer.
Yeah, anyway, Prateek, I feel much more confident to recommend AI than Thierry had to recommend high definition or wide angle view, because they had very few studies, very little evidence on it. We have evidence. We can sit down. But again, Thierry, everything is very fast. So we need to move fast.
But the problem is not really the cost. The problem is the fact that it is always moving. So in 2 years, you will have a new software, etc., etc. And so, do I need to rent or lease, or do I need to buy the system? What is your answer?
So I feel that your point, Thierry, is very well taken. So we're not talking about one algorithm. We are talking about 10 of algorithms. I have one on polyp. Why not one on Barrett? Why not one on smart ESD? Why not one on characterization? So there are several solutions. What should I do? Should I buy? Should I rent? So here in Europe, the attempt to rent the software that was done, because we can just talk honestly, okay? That was done by Medtronic with GI Genius. Didn't work out, okay? So probably if you have only one software, it's better to buy. But now everything is changing. Because at least two companies, one is again Medtronic and the second is Olympus, is opening its box to multiple software. So you can buy an algorithm and put it on the same box. So I would say, Thierry, we need to have a box. We need to buy a box. And then probably we'll see how we can buy or rent. Probably something like with the app, you pay, like a rent, you're right. Okay. But at this stage, it was not successful in Europe. Okay. We must be honest. I don't know in the US. Maybe in the US it was successful.
No, so again, in the US also, right now we have 3 AI algorithms which are FDA approved and available. But the situation will be very similar as in Europe, in which there'll be multiple of those which are available. The question about rent or buy may be driven by the particular company, right? So it's like if a particular company is just renting it or leasing it, that's what you will do. Okay. Whereas if now it comes with your endoscopy tower. So just think back of when we started using virtual chromo endoscopy. we didn't have to rent it or buy it. It came preloaded within the system. So I think very soon that is what will happen with all the endoscopy companies as well.
Okay, but just now concerning the now we have a quite large number of algorithms. So it will grow. It will grow. So they are FDA approved. In Europe, they are CE marked. But is there a role for ESGE to work on the approval, to set the bar, to say we want 90% detection rate? What do you think, Helmut? You just joined now.
Yeah, sorry for my delay.
No, it's okay.
I think
there is a role for ESGE, no?
Yeah, for sure there is a room for ESG. I think we as a society, we should define why we need AI, and I would say we need to improve quality. And we need to improve the quality of all endoscopists. So to make a non-experienced endoscopist bring into the same level as an experienced endoscopist. So let's say in Germany, I know then there is an overall average of quality which is almost the same. And there are not the super experts because the patient does not know, has he a high RDR or not? So if everybody knows he's using an AI system, and this AI system helps us to improve the quality, then I would say in an area you have the same quality parameters, and you can accept that this is a procedure with a high quality. We as a society, we cannot influence FDA or CE market. This is politics.
We could now. We could, thanks to the new regulation, European regulation. We should be involved in that.
For the moment. So I think, Helmut's right, is in the sense that the goal for all of this is to make sure that you're improving ultimately the quality of endoscopy. But you're right. I think rather than influence, my sense is that we should be working with these governmental agencies. So in the US, for example, through the ESGE, the task force, we are working closely with the FDA. Yeah. So we are trying to figure out what the needs are, how are they looking at this? Because this is a new field for everyone. I think everyone's struggling with it, just as the societies are. So I think you're absolutely right. I think we should be working with them to help them understand the physician's perspective on this. And right now we are talking about polyps, which is fine, in which you can conduct a 1,000-patient randomized controlled trial. But what when you come to use cases in which the prevalence of the disease is low, such as Barrett's esophagus or gastric cancer? You cannot do a 1,000-patient randomized controlled trial. So in that situation, we do have to work with the agencies and explain to them what is doable, what is feasible, and what would be the best way to do this.
Yeah, can I say something?
Of course.
Please don't hear, okay?
Yeah.
So I feel that we need to learn from American mistakes. For instance, to say in order to be FDA approved, you need to increase the ADR with a CAD-E is stupid, because ADR does not depend only on CAD-E. It depends on prevalence of disease, on the expertise of the endoscopy, on exposing the mucosa. So in the US, they are throwing out a lot of very good devices for bad science. So this is why we need to interact. Because you don't need to have a very good medtech discipline to be affected by weak study endpoints.
Okay, and do you see? You use the same system for detection and on characterization, optical diagnosis. What do you think about? We can use the same system. A very basic question.
Yes, I mean, it all depends on the system. Yes, you can.
You can.
If it has been trained to do it. So right now, what we have approved in the US is only a detection system, not a characterization system. So once a characterization system gets approved, then yes, you can use it, but nothing's available right now.
Okay. Just now a question concerning clinical research. Okay, now we have a lot of randomized study. Okay, not concerning colon. So what is next? Which are the next step for clinical research? Because I receive a lot of papers for Endoscopy International Open, but at the end, I want to have different clinical research. How do you see the future for clinical research?
Yes, I mean,
next steps.
The next steps, I think, to me, we are talking about just CAD-E, which is very primitive, and it
Only
is
because you have Barrett.
and it is the tip of the iceberg. I think we need to expand beyond that, right? I mean, so there are different other disease states in which, including Barrett's esophagus, including gastric intestinal metaplasia. Talk about, EUS, where everything is black and white, right? How to differentiate chronic pancreatitis from early pancreatic cancer, So to me, I think those will be the areas where the importance and the clinical relevance will be much higher.
Okay. So Barrett's esophagus. And you?
Well, I completely agree. AI was introduced on the colon. Now we see so many applications, so many indications, Barrett's, EUS, ERCP. The next step is to combine it with clinical data. For example, you have GI bleeders. To have information about the clinical information about the patient, and then you can have a prognosis on the outcome of this patient during the endoscopy when you have clinical data as well. Or if you have talking about IBD, so the response on special treatments. I think the combination now from clinical data with imaging data is for sure an interesting point and will also influence our daily practice soon. Yeah.
I see. I think an important application. When you have when you have now an endoscope, you have plenty of buttons. Okay, it's like a piano. You never know which one you have to use. Plenty of different imaging, so I'm lost. So I want always to have the best technique for this pathology or for this organ. Maybe I personally select initially, but the computer should know which technology I prefer for this disease. This could be a fantastic application.
But in this theory, we always talk about we assessing the machine. My fear is that it will be the machine to assess us in a very short term.
Okay, now I have a specific, not a specific question, a little provocative question to the three of you. Missed cancer with artificial intelligence. Who is responsible?
Endoscopist.
The endoscopist?
Yeah.
So I think you have to understand that right now, the AI is only an assist device, right?
No.
It's not taking over what we are doing. It is an assist device for us. So at the end, the physician is going to be responsible for whatever happens, with that device.
It's similar to all devices you use in a car. There are some devices you help you to drive your car more safety, but at the end, if you have an accident, you as a driver are responsible, and not the company who has developed this device.
Yeah.
From the legal aspect, I would say it's for the moment the situation.
So I feel it depends on the indication of the device. For instance, if a device is expected to detect adenoma, and then it misses a big adenoma due to poor programming from the engineer, again, the engineer is also responsible. But if you miss with AI a scissored lesion with cancer, as Mathieu Piochet described twice on endoscopy, then the engineer is not responsible because that software was not trained with a scissored polyp. Then the endoscopist must be aware of how the machine was trained. You should use the machine for what is expected. For instance, you should not use this for IBD. You should not use this for Lynch syndrome. You should not use this for early gastric cancer. It is a colon software. You should not use for gastric cancer.
Right, but his point is different. It's not saying that using a colon device for gastric cancer. He's not asking that.
No.
But it is the issue right now with all the devices is that it truly is a black box, right? We have no idea how it was trained, what it was trained on, what is the actual performances of. Well, then it needs to be provided.
This is something the scientific society must ask.
One exception, Terry, is if you have a patient where the colon is not well prepared, it's not clean, the computer is not trained on this dirty colon. So if the endoscopist says, well, my AI system hasn't detected any lesion, but the colon was not clean, then I would say yes, in this case, the endoscopist can be responsible, is guilty if a cancer was missed. Because all the systems are trained on super clean colons and not on... This is an exception, I would say.
Okay, but so far you don't know any medical legal history I'm waiting for the first medical legal history, okay?
Yeah.
And the judge will tell.
Yeah.
Yeah, David.
Okay, we are maybe too straightful, huh? The judge will tell
It will
who
come.
is
It
responsible.
will
Who is-
come. We perhaps you have known from this case Tesla where a car killed a person. It's not Tesla. It's a driver.
Thierry, why
Just
are you
go to-
always looking at me when you talk about Miss Cancer, never to Helmut and Prateek?
Because-
I don't
Because
remember any
he
question
knows the
coming back.
quality of
You always look at
colonoscopy.
you always look at me.
As to who who's doing
No,
it.
no, no, because you did not realize. This concept. This is just last question for Prateek is our guest. So Barrett's esophagus.
Yeah.
How many studies have you conducted so far on Barrett's esophagus and artificial intelligence?
So right now in the US, none. Because right now the devices are being tested in Europe, and I think in Europe there will be some multi-center studies, including the US, which will be conducted and which will be done. Professor Messmann himself has an algorithm that he has developed, so perhaps he can shed some light, but the preliminary data, looks good. At least in the US right now, there's no device approved for Barrett's esophagus.
Yeah.
Ah, yes.
It is the same in Europe. There are now running trials, multi-center trials.
Okay,
and,
and
we can expect in a
and you
couple
think
of
there
years.
is a role for stomach in Europe? No, probably not.
Maybe in Eastern Europe?
Maybe in Eastern Europe.
Portugal.
Honestly, I would say we are doing in Germany a project for upper GI screening endoscopy to combine it with colonoscopy. So far, we don't have an upper GI screening program because of cost effectiveness. Though the costs for quality of life are too high. So we are not good enough to detect lesions. But maybe if we have in the future AI system which pick up Barrett cancer, squamous cell cancer, gastric cancer, and we can increase the number and can treat these cases very effectively with low costs by endoscopic resection, not by surgery, then I think it plays a role for the future. In
And
the
it definitely
upper GI
does,
screening.
because also remember that these cancers, although they are less common in Europe and in the Western world, they're more likely to be missed because endoscopists don't get trained
course, of
enough
course,
We are not
to
trained. We are not
recognize
trained.
early
Yeah.
cancer
Okay.
in the upper GI tract as they are in the colon. So I think to me, that's why I think the role of AI in the upper GI tract, which will be much more valuable to us
Exactly.
Okay.
than for
Exactly.
colon.
Okay, so we have to conclude now or
Okay.
to stop. I see that Cesare is no more speaking. So it's first time in his life he stopped to speak. Okay, a great thank you to the three of you. Of course, we did not speak about training and artificial intelligence or how artificial intelligence can change the way we do a procedure. But there are so many topics to cover with artificial intelligence. I think artificial intelligence is not only interesting as a technique, it's interesting to organize discussion, to discuss, brainstorming. A great thank you to the three
you.
of you. Thank you very much.
Thierry.
Thanks, Thierry.